Today we're going to be making a color dot inventory. So the question is, how do you make colors that work together and also have a nice variety of them? That's always the question for anybody that's painting. What colors do I use? What colors work together? This is one way of doing that, producing colors that work together. You can produce tones. Tone, of course, you guys, is another term for a color that has been mixed into another color. Okay, so a prismatic color is not a tone. Anything that's not a prismatic color is a tone. So you could produce tones by using a limited palette of no more than 3 colors plus white. You can use complementary colors, so colors that are across from each other on the color wheel. You can use triads, so colors that form a triangle on the color wheel. A color dot inventory is a term for a systematic exploration of a palette's range by cross-mixing. That's the definition for it. So we're going to create a color dot inventory of a bunch of colors that work together in a limited palette. So take out your color wheel if you need help with this. You can do red and green. You can do red, orange, blue, green. You can do orange and cyan, yellow, orange, blue, purple. Anything that's across from each other, complementary colors. Okay, red, purple, yellow, green. First thing I'm going to do is get my paper ready. It's 5 by 7. What I need to do is I need to put a background tone in. I need to mid-tone the background. It should be a value that's a mid-value. It should also be a neutral grayish color. Okay, so I combine my complements plus white to create that mid-tone for the background. So now that I mixed my orange, my supply of orange, which I'll need, I got plenty of blue over here that comes straight out of the tube. What I'll do is just move some over here to this spot and then grab some blue. I just need to lighten this up just a little bit. It's not quite a mid-tone yet. Mid-tone meaning a medium value color. I just need to add a little bit of white, but I want to make sure I don't taint my white supply over here. So I'll grab a little bit of white and I'll sort of place it nearby so I can mix it in. I know I said the word gray, a mid-tone gray, and depending on what you're mixing, you might end up with something that looks more like gray. But this is, so I'm just combining my 2 complements so it creates a medium mid-tone value, and then we'll add a little bit of white because it was a little too dark, and I'm going to use that as my background color. The next step after you let it dry is to put down your orange, or you're going to put down your complementary colors and white as penny-sized dots. So I will take my original colors here, the blue and the orange and the white, and I will put dots. You will have 4 rows of dots. 1, 2, 3, 4. So space them out okay. Again, they don't have to be perfectly spaced, but just make sure you have enough room. I do want to make sure I don't see through to the background mid-tone. So I will put enough on and make sure it's not watery. Make sure it's not watery. It might have to be that you put 1 layer down and then you put another layer on top. Okay, after I'm done putting down my first row of what I'll be mixing together, the 3 other rows will be mixtures of combinations of blue and orange of your complements plus white to make it either a low value, so it has a lot of white for the low value, a mid value, a little bit of white maybe, or none at all, and then the dark or high value, your 3rd row down, or 4th row down, that will probably be no white at all. So what I'm going to do first is I'll take blue and add white to it until it's really, really light. So it's not necessarily always a combination of these 2 plus white. Like I'm just going to, for the first dot, I'm going to take blue and add a lot of white into it till it becomes an almost white blue. Make sure that when you're doing this, you're changing your water up every so often so you don't mess up your mixing by your water being dirty. Now what I'm going to do with this blue that I just made, I'm actually going to take, I didn't tell you this, I'll take a separate piece of paper because you're going to make a collage after this. If you want to make a painting instead, that's totally fine with me. But before this blue disappears that I've made, I'm going to put it down on paper right now. Because after you do this exercise where you're learning how to combine limited amounts of color, limited number of colors to make a lot of different colors, a lot of tones, then you're going to try it out on a small scale. So it's not going to be big. Then I don't have to figure out what I did to make that color later. It'll get more complicated when you get into mixing ratios of your complements together plus white, for sure. Okay, so that's the first one. I'm probably going to combine these two together. Maybe less orange into the blue and a little white for the next dot. The first thing I did was make a super light blue dot, and then I combined orange and put orange into white, a little bit of white, and became kind of a peach. What I'm going to do is create both these light blue tone and peach tone, a little bit more of them, so I can mix those together to create two different combinations here, two different tones. Okay, I've got a supply of the light orange and I've got a supply of the light blue. Those are my dots right there. I'm going to combine them together to create two different tones. For the first combination, I'm going to take more of the blue, the light blue tone, and I'll add just a little bit of peachy orange, until it changes a little bit for me. So I'll take some of the peach orange, and I want to see if I can make a tone that's different than that one by taking a little bit of the blue and adding it to the peach. So it's the reverse. So the peach with just a little bit of blue, and I'll see how it changes. I want to make sure that these two look different, because this one had more blue and this tone has more peach. And to me, maybe not to you, they do look different. It doesn't even look much different than what I had. It just looks a little more tan. Yeah, it definitely looks different. It's more tan colored than it is orange. And for the rest of it that I have over here, I'm going to put it down on my paper so I can make my collage. These will be small collages, you guys, but it'll be good for you to make a bunch of different shapes for yourself. Like not all the same size square, so that you can cut out squiggly shapes, lightning bolt shapes, I don't know, circles. This spot is going to be where I put this tone, this low value tone that I've created, which looks more like a gray, a greenish gray. And that's how I know it's more toward that blue. They don't look too different on the camera, but they definitely look different to me. If you want to, instead of doing a collage, just do an improvisational painting as you go, that's fine too. Now I'm going to do my mid-value tones. That means that I'm not using a ton of white. I'm only using a little bit of white, okay? And mostly it's combining these two with a little bit of white. So I'll take my blue, put it in a new spot. So a little bit of orange will change it pretty quick. Took a little orange, added it in. Now technically this is my darker value. This color that this tone that I've just made, this can be the darker value row. So I can put this down here. I'm going to go ahead and do that for my last row, and then I'll add white to it so it becomes a little bit lighter. It becomes a medium value. That's what I want. It's somewhere in between the value of the prismatic. It's somewhere in between the value of the high value tone and the low value tone. I've made this medium value. It's going to go right here. One of these tones that I create as I go along will have to be the background for my collage. I can always make it again later, and that's fine. Or I could just consciously make a really big area of color on paper so that I have that as the background. Okay, what's next is going to be, I added a little bit of orange into the blue, to make this one. And then I add a little bit of white. So it was in between value. It's mid value. Okay. Now I'm going to add maybe equal amounts next. And then for this, the next circle over, dot over will be more orange than blue. And then this dot will be mostly orange, but a medium value. So I'm going to try to combine the blue and the orange equally. What I just made can be part of the dark row. So I get both rows, bottom two rows done at the same time, both the high value and the medium value. Now I'm going to make the value lighter by adding white and putting a dot right there. So I still have what I have left over, because I need a value that's in between this high value and the low value. This, what I've just created here, this tone, is somewhere in between this value and that value. Okay, there's my medium value. You'll notice by doing this exercise, you'll realize how many different kinds of chromatic grays, like lighter version chromatic grays, that you can make. And they're kind of beautiful together when you put them side by side. So I combine equal amounts of my complements here, and then I added white to make it a medium value instead of a high value. So what I'm going to do for here is add mostly orange with a little bit of blue. Then I'm going to take the tone that I made, the high value tone, and I'm going to add white into it. Or sorry, I should add it into white, shouldn't I? So here's my white. Okay. Now I'm going to try to, the last high value dot, I'm going to take orange, and I'll probably just use this orange right here. I have my supply orange, since it's my last two dots, and I'll just take a teeny tiny amount of blue, not a lot at all, to see if I can make a change, a very little change happen. It's not quite, this is not quite a high value. This is more of a mid value that I just made. So let's just keep that in mind, okay? It's not completely perfect. Okay, and that's it. You'll see what a nice variety of tones that you create with just two complementary colors. And if you had used a triad of colors, you would get many more different tones to work with in your palette that works together, that will always work together.